All right, welcome back, everybody. P-Mail Bacon here, and we have a very special episode of the show lined up for you here today because we are talking Arcane Season 2. This is going to be a big spoiler discussion with best friend of the show, Mr. TechChallenge. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, Bacon.
Excellent. Well, I just finished watching Arcane season 2 a few hours ago, so I'm
So it's
fresh.
fresh.
It's fresh in my mind. I'm off the heels. Um, my wife didn't like it as much as me, so she didn't want to talk about it in depth,
Ooh.
and we'll talk about that. I think that's going to be an interesting part of the conversation here. But I needed someone to kind of just unload on after everything that I just witnessed. So, and you had mentioned the idea of doing a little podcast or something on this. So here we are, and I know we were both big fans of season 1, and I'm curious to see where you stand with season 2.
Yeah, great question, man. It's first of all, I'm glad you finally finished it because I have been waiting to talk about this forever. But yeah, no, it's let's say generic without getting too specific. Really enjoyed it. Sorry, 2 seconds here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Hello.
No, sorry. Somebody was knocking on the door.
Oh, okay. Is that your pizza delivery there?
No. No, I wish. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Season 1 obviously was fantastic. Very good, in-depth world building, character building, great arcs. I think season 2 did a very good job. Mm, I don't want to say matching or exceeding it, but switching like the premise of it. Um, they focused heavily on music and the integration that way. The art style still fantastic, phenomenal. They did a
Of
very good
course,
job.
absolutely.
Um, but
And
yeah, I did enjoy it quite a bit.
so,
I
so
liked the
you
arcs.
walked away from it feeling satisfied. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So it wasn't like a disappointment or anything like that. You were like, I enjoyed what I saw.
yeah. There's definitely some gripes I have about it. Some
Sure.
arcs felt a little rushed,
Mm-hmm.
but
I agree.
overall, the story that they told, I think they did a very good job at it.
Yep. I am pretty much in the same camp. I think that is. I think that resonates with how I'm feeling about it right at the moment. I have. It's not perfect in my mind. I did check the Rotten Tomatoes scores. The
Mhm.
just after watching it today, and it is somehow not that I'm not saying it doesn't deserve it, but it's questionable when I see these things. It is actually sitting at a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So
Okay, I would not give it a 100%.
yeah,
I
me
think
either.
that's I get it. Like a lot of people jump into the hype, and most people who go to do these, reviews are fans already, especially for season twos and continuations of stuff. So I get why it would be at 100%, but
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I don't think it deserves quite that. Near that for sure. Like it was very good, but
If you were in
yeah,
the
it was not a
90s,
perfect.
if you were in the 90s for this, I think that's justifiable. I am not in the 90s. I will just, spoiler alert here. I'm not in the 90s, but my score also I would say is quite high. But I will say I did enjoy season 1 more overall, and
Mm,
I will provide explanations as to why that's the case.
okay, yeah, that's fair, man. I really enjoyed season one, loved it, watched it multiple times. I'm actually, I would say, a season two fan, but to preface
Sure.
that, I'm also a Last Jedi fan. So,
Sure.
yeah,
I
you know
think
what?
that's actually a really interesting comparison here, actually, in terms of the pacing, the action in this one. It's like you said, some of the rush story beats. There was moments where it did kind of give me a little bit of the new Star Wars trilogy vibes at times in the way that it was all constructed.
I agree. You could definitely tell some moments when they were like, "I want this to happen," and this, and then, like you could see it on the whiteboard. And then the through points, like the in between points, they just sort of yada yada it over.
Mhm.
Like Jace, or sorry, Victor leaving Jace right at the beginning,
Yep,
just for that. All right, see you later, Jace.
for sure.
It like that seemed very odd.
Yep.
with no context as far as like why is he
That's one of
so.
several examples I think of that exact kind of situation.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get deep into it here, but so just to preface this, right? Neither of us are. I don't know about you. I'm not a big League of Legends lore guy. I know the characters. I know them mostly through. I played more Legends of Runeterra than anything, so
Mm,
that's like really
actually,
that's
same.
really where
Yeah,
I know the
great
characters
game.
from. I loved that
I
game
think
when it
that's
came
where
out.
most of the lore comes from, to be fair. Well, there's like
Probably, yeah,
videos and stuff like that through League, but I
right.
think most of like the actual interactable lore is through Legends of Runeterra.
Yeah. So for anybody watching the video here, this is us attempting to play League of Legends. So don't be too harsh on us here. This is our first game in several years. We are complete noobs at this, but hey, figured it would be pretty fitting for the video here. But yeah, we're neither of us are League of Legends aficionados or anything like that. I think we're pretty we're
Be
amateurs when it
super
comes to
harsh.
that, right? Yeah. Right.
Just tell us everything we did at every timestamp.
Let's
Anything
be
you see
honest.
that we did wrong, put it in the comments.
Exactly. We're not, and I don't think we plan on getting any better at the game than we are right now, to be honest with you. So, but I think, but we've talked about it many times in the past where we both love the world and the characters of
Mm,
League of Legends, and I
yeah.
find that element of it super appealing, and you know why I'm drawn to Arcane.
Yeah, completely agree. I like anything fantasy sci-fi based, like anything that can't happen in normal life. Those sort of extreme, extravagant magic and sci-fi and all that sort of stuff. I'm naturally drawn to.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
obviously, what they did is they built a game and they built characters, and then they just made the lore fit that character. And multiple times they've sort of had to go back and switch the lore and because it was never a static thing
Hmm.
until obviously Arcane really started to take off. They saw how popular it was, and now they're starting to canonize some type of backstory.
Yep.
So for myself, I don't know a lot of League lore, but after Arcane, I got into shoot, I can't remember his name now. There's a YouTuber who does League specific stuff,
Okay.
and he was the guy who sort of stands in front of a green screen and explained like the Riot MMO and all of that and the
Yeah.
world around it.
I don't know him. Not sure who that is.
Yeah, quite good. I'll figure out his name and I'll let you know.
Okay.
But
Well, we'll give him a
yeah,
shout
so
out.
I know some little bit.
Okay.
He is fantastic. Watch his videos if you ever want to know anything about League.
I could see myself watching League lore videos, especially after the show. And that's one thing I'll say. Like, there were definitely moments I had in the show where I'm like, okay, if I knew more about these characters and some of their backgrounds and stuff, I think some of it would have came together a little bit more succinctly together for me, or a little more clear.
Mm,
But there were, I'll give a really clear example of that. And I'm trying to think of it, how to describe it. I guess it's who is the Ambessa, the
Mbessa, yeah.
yeah, well, her daughter. What's her daughter's name? Do you
Oh,
remember? I don't remember. Hold on, I'll look it up right now. Ambessa's daughter. Like, this is where we're gonna get a little bit stuck here, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Is
I'll
I
agree.
don't
I'm not 100%
uh
on everybody's names.
Mel Medarda.
Mel,
Mel
that's it.
Medarda.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
she's the daughter. So the whole storyline with her and the Black Rose, and there's that
yeah.
shadow figure or whatever, and they seem to be sisters or something. I had no idea what was happening there. That's a big piece of the story that I will say made almost no sense to me, like right until the end.
Super fair. I can clear up some of it. So they are not sisters. They are both magical, which
Obviously,
is somewhat rare in Runeterra, the world.
yeah.
And so, how do I do this without getting too deep into it? There's a country called Noxus,
Yes,
which is a
I'm
very
familiar with the regions because of Runeterra, Legends of Runeterra.
excellent, perfect. All right, so Noxus has three rulers, and they represent three different like parts of ruling or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, One of them is the Black
You
Rose,
got
and they're sort of
Piltover,
like
Zon, Noxus, the little gopher dudes, and
yeah,
the pirate dudes.
yeah, yeah. There's Bilgewater, Ionia,
Right,
uh,
Ionia, yeah.
the non-magical one, which is super
Demacia,
D, Demacia, Yeah, and then there's the
Ionia,
northern
Freljord, which is the frozen
Freljord.
one.
Yeah.
Shurima, okay, yeah, the desert
Shurima.
one.
Yep, the desert.
Bilgewater, that's the pirates.
Correct.
Targon, the Void, and Shadow Isles.
Yep. Yeah. So the Void and Shadow Isles sort of have a little bit more of mystique to them, but we're getting a little too far afield onto stuff that I don't think we know too much about
No,
as far
no.
as League lore.
So who is the, just so I have a clear understanding, the shadowy figure, she is
Yeah.
from where, sorry?
So the Black Rose, the leader of the Black Rose, is one of the leaders of Noxus.
Of Noxus, okay. All right, got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So Mbessa did something, and I'm not 100% sure
Okay.
what.
So maybe they'll
But she
expand
did
on that
something
in
to piss
future
them
stories
off.
or something. Okay, yeah, they didn't really explain that, right?
No.
Am I
Which
crazy? Did I
I
miss something with that?
love in storytelling. No, I
That's
mean, unless I
sure.
miss it as well.
I
But I
think
love
I
that kind of
think
stuff.
what throws me off with that is they've said that there isn't going to be a season 3 of Arcane, so it's like, well, it's like what we were just talking about earlier. Like, is there going to be a different version of Arcane, and they get more into that kind of stuff, or it's just going to be like
Yeah.
like we're going to just have to guess forever as to what she did and why there's this person coming after her, and like,
Yeah. So what I understand is they're essentially making an anthology series. So what they're going to do is like the next one won't be called Arcane because this one was
right,
about the Arcane in
yep,
Piltover and Zon and that
exactly,
whole story.
yep,
But they will continue to make more and more series about Runeterra and yeah, the world in general and how everything goes. So
okay,
they'll explain Noxus. Excuse me. They'll explain the Freljord and
yep,
Demacia and all that sort of stuff. So it won't necessarily be called Arcane. I'm glad that they told it pretty succinctly, not perfectly, but pretty succinctly in two, good seasons, 18 episodes.
mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to continue that
It was tight. It was a
throughout.
tight storytelling, that's for sure. Maybe a
It was,
little too tight, maybe, but they squeezed it in there somehow.
yes, I think based on the way that they paced season one, I think they were just like, we're going to start telling this world from this point.
Mm-hmm.
Based on season two, they're like, okay, with how all these characters work and when and where they live, we can't really tell like a cohesive story. So what if we just told individual stories from different time frames?
Yep.
So I think they're tilting that way now, which
Okay.
I loved. I like a story that bookends, even
Okay.
if it's unsatisfying. I like that so much more than just
Yeah,
trying to run something
and that's fair.
down
There
mid.
might be a bigger picture here that we're not seeing yet. So it, we have to kind of look at it within a microcosm of itself. So because
Yeah,
the ending, the very, again, I don't want to jump to the ending yet, but I will say the ending left me feeling, I won't say dissatisfied, but there was a little bit of that feeling of like, okay, I'm not 100% sure if I agree with that, but
sure. Felt like a
anyway,
bit of a cop out.
I want to ask you some questions. So first, the first question that I have, like, that I think about when I'm watching a show like this is, the characters, the story arcs. Who was your favorite character at the end of the season?
That's a great question. I really liked Victor throughout season one. I just liked that
Mm,
whole, life has got me down, but I'm gonna make it anyway sort of
sure.
attitude that he had, and
Okay.
his like arc there when I can't remember her name, but the young lady
Yeah.
who liked
The
him,
whatever, the assistant or whatever.
yes, who came in and died when with the Arc Core or the Arcane Core. What was it called?
Hex core.
Hex Core. Thank you.
Her name was
Um,
Sky Young.
yeah, Sky. Right? I like that, and then his arc sort of going down the is it worth it to live, and then how that sort of mirrored Jace's arc, and Jace came and saved him, and all that sort of stuff. Really, really like that.
And I didn't realize this. So is Victor, he was a Zonite. He was not from Piltover.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's from Zon initially, and then
Okay. I didn't
yeah,
realize that. And so Sky apparently also was from, I'm just looking this up on ChatGPT, but
that's all right.
apparently Sky was also a fellow Zonite.
Hmm. Did not know that. Yeah, had no background for her,
Yeah.
but that kind of helps.
So she was
Like that.
assisting in the next. Okay. So so let's start with Victor because I have a lot of questions about him. Actually, that's a big storyline
Sure.
that I again don't really totally grasp exactly what's going on. I have some theories, and maybe that's the
Okay.
intention, right? It's meant to be more of a like theory based discussion around this.
Yeah. Theory crafting in your stories is always better.
So obviously, the big catalyst for the events in the show, that leads, that builds up to the major climax, is Victor. About halfway through the season ish, they enter and correct me if I'm getting anything wrong here, but they are at some point within the vault where the hex core is being contained, and they get both sucked in. Well, actually, prior to that, actually, no, we should even back up before that. Victor was absorbed by the hex core and then evolved by the hex core, and then he exited the, whatever you want to call it, the cocoon. Or whatever, the mirror. It kind of looked like a mirror kind of thing that he was in.
Yeah.
He breaks free of that, and then he seems to be a changed person. He literally, physically, his anatomy is completely changed at that point. It seems to be that he's become one with the arcane or magic of the world, or whatever you want to say. And then him and Jace enter the hex core containment unit, and they both get sucked into kind of these alternate realities. Is that kind of what your interpretation was?
I mean, you're right on a lot of things, but it wasn't him and Jace necessarily. Like, Jace goes in with Heimer and Echo, right?
Right. Okay. Yes. Jace.
And,
right. So because Victor leaves to go down to Zon to go heal people after he leaves the mirror. Right.
Yeah, he starts, quote unquote, healing them of their Shimmer sickness. So there's some type of connection between Shimmer and the Arcane. I don't know exactly what it is.
They didn't draw on that very much, eh?
No, which I like mysteries. It also frustrates me because it took them 2 years to make a sequel, so who knows when the next one will come.
That's such a good point, because Shimmer was such a huge part in the first season, and they didn't really expand on it that much in season 2 at all. They kind of just went and healed everybody, and now you never heard about it again.
Yes, so it's a problem. It's also what made like the hex core work with Victor was, the Dr. Singe. He gave Victor some type of, a little bit of shimmer. He injected it or whatever he did.
That's the dude with the gas mask thing, or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, it's the doctor who created shimmer and is trying to save his daughter.
Okay. Yes. And, right. Yep. Got it.
Yeah. So that was super fun. But there's some sort of connection there that they didn't fully explain, which I'm fine with. I like that. I like theory crafting. It involves the community. It gives us opportunities to, come up with ideas and.
So my theory on this is how I interpret it. The Arcane almost seemed to have a will of its own. It's almost like a virus, where it's like once it's very interesting that once it infected Victor, he completely turned into a totally different person. Because it was really strange to me too. Like I was really wondering, like, especially as we got up to the end, and he his concept was like, okay, he dreamt of this world where he could heal people, seemed to be driven by his past and by his, he has this permanent injury in his leg that he was healed by the hex core, so he's like healthy again. And he seemed, as soon as he was consumed by the arcane magic, that his purpose and drive of wanting to heal the world seemed to come at the cost of like everything else, to the point of like, existence, basically, which to me, it was like, okay, Victor seemed like a very reasonable, rational guy. In fact, I would say in season 1, Jace was like the hot-headed one who was making irrational decisions and wanted to push the magic of the hex core. But as soon as Victor was absorbed by the hex core, he was no longer living out like his own will. He was like living out the will of like what the magic wanted, and the magic just seems to be this all-consuming thing that just wants to like devour everything into itself.
Possibly. I think that's a fair example or explanation of what it is. I think I would see it personally, excuse me, as more of a natural phenomenon that has like a bunch of different things that can happen.
Sure.
And influence this person, and whatever happened out of that happened. It sort of, as you say, gave him the ability to do all these great things, and because of his predilection to he was always injured and always weak, and he wanted to help and heal and all that. It sort of twisted that drive in such a way.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Oh,
Like it seemed
yeah.
to. So whether it was the magic itself having kind of its own, like you said, natural order in how it
Hmm.
wants to instill itself, but he certainly seemed to be like a completely different individual once he emerged from, the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
arcane
Post
or whatever.
Cocoon, he was clearly
Yeah,
like a whole new thing.
yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
whether it was like necessarily he just had the power and then that amplified the negative sides of him, or if he was like taken over. It didn't seem like they were trying to give you the sense of something else was influencing him. It
Hmm.
just seemed like, the old what was it, ultimate power or absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Hmm.
So you got everything you wanted, you just never really thought about what it was that you wanted.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Again, yeah, I think you could, like you said, you could come up with probably a few different explanations as to exactly what was going on there. But so you're interpreting it more as soon as he had the power to do it, he kind of like just kind of
It's his own internal choices that drove
became
him that way.
corrupted by the fact that he had this power all of a sudden and could like massively influence the world around him.
That was my interpretation for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, different, little, slightly different interpretation. And then another big question I had was, where the heck did that like whole replica army thing come from at
Oh
the end
yeah,
there? Like I was like, what the hell are these? Like
sure.
where are all these like I am robot, or that movie with Will
Yeah, yeah,
Smith, I
yeah.
Robot? That one really threw me off. I was like, okay, who made these? Where did they come from? Why are they able to be imbued with the magic or like be like controlled, by Victor from a proxy kind of thing? Um, and Ambassa seemed to have some kind of, or seemed to have knowledge of them or whatever. Like that whole piece leading up to the end, whole when they had the big battle at the end and all the robots are climbing up the tower and everything. I was like, it's cool. It looks cool, but
Sure,
I'm
but
like,
you
what's
sort of
going
skipped a
on?
step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, where did this come from? Who made these? What are these things? Why they look like robots? They didn't, like, if they had been like magical beings that were made out of like ethereal magic that he like summoned or something.
Mm.
I think that would have been, I would have less questions about that. But they were like literally like animatronic type beings.
So they did sort of explain this. I can't remember his name. He was the fella with glasses who, was all shimmered up and
Yeah.
was trying to stab Victor, who ended
The
up being
who got healed. Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So they ended up sort of using him as the through point for what's happening with cult or tribe or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
So when Victor, or sorry, when Jace killed quote unquote Victor, and then Victor was sort of still alive in his celestial realm, whatever thing he's a part of there.
Hmm.
Um, Victor sort of stated that his goal was to help people. Shoot, what do you say? Evolve.
Right. Yes. That
And
seemed
he
to be a
said,
big intention behind his motivations, was the evolution of, and that's another question, like the evolution of what, mankind, of the magic. Like there was a lot of questions for me what he meant by
sure.
the, when he talked
It was
about
of
evolve.
mankind. It was of the world. It was of society. Right. He wanted to get
Right.
rid of pain. Right. So his
Yep.
drive was like we could all be of one mind, and which seems to be like when you get a glimpse into his celestial side of the world, like what's happening. He's taking these souls, and they're all becoming part of one, and he gets rid of pain and all this sort of stuff. But he also
Right.
gains access to their body, and he
Yes.
uses the arcane to change that body
They
into
they
what
lose
you
com-
saw.
they lose complete free will.
Correct. Yeah,
Eh,
yeah.
eh,
It's complete subjugation of free will. So it's sort of like, I mean, I don't want to get political, but like
yeah,
super
that's what it is.
communism or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like
I
just
mean, yeah, I mean, that's probably a little too on the nose, probably, but
mm,
I think the idea that, yeah, removing humanity's free will would lead to like a destitute state for humanity, I think is kind of what the, implication there is.
yeah. Even like if you had the best intentions, but all you have to do is give up all of your freedoms, and I will give you the life you want, is
Yeah.
still a bad thing,
Hmm.
right? And I think that
Yeah.
was sort of what they were going for.
Yeah, I didn't get any like deep political,
No,
commentary on that.
I wouldn't say
It was
political.
more
Yeah.
philosophical approach to
Yes.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
from my take. But I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, as soon as you subjugate yourself, and it was not even like subjugate yourself to the will, but to be subjugated by like
Yeah.
a higher power. You could even probably get like religious and spiritual with like that type of conversation, right? Like, because he clearly like had almost godlike powers at that point, right?
Yes.
So
Yes, he was very, very near that. So I will say one thing I do know about like the lore is there's several different types of magic or arcane or whatever.
yeah,
One of them is celestial, which it seems to be what
okay.
Victor was tapping into,
Yeah.
which is like god level. I mean,
Yeah,
all of them can be god
outer
level.
space, like fucking
Yes,
what you
power of
like
the stars, sort of,
Cthulhu kind of shit.
universal. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
So I think he tapped in such a way with his merging or whatever with the hex core,
Yep.
to such a level that, yeah, like he clearly had the ability to and power to not only change these people's body into the machines that you were talking about,
Hmm. So
but
were the
also
okay?
subjugate
So
the
were the
minds.
people the machines, or were the
Correct.
machines
Yes.
machines?
Nope.
The
There were
people
the
were
people.
machines.
Yes,
Okay.
they were the evolution that he was talking about.
So then I didn't really catch it either. I might have missed it. But so once he died, did the machines revert back to the people, or were they just screwed at that point and they were all dead?
Oh,
because
no,
because if you
they
because
all
if you
dropped dead.
remember, well, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
thought
they
too.
all
Because
dropped dead.
if you remember Warwick at the end,
Oh,
he dies.
that's
Like, oh no,
true.
actually, no, he doesn't die. No, he doesn't die. He stays alive when Victor dies, and then he goes
Yeah,
crazy.
that's true. Actually, maybe maybe they just lose the controlling hand. I guess
Maybe, yeah.
that's actually a great question because I feel like the Noxian army died. Like it feels like
Oh,
once
I
Victor
didn't.
was gone,
Oh,
they all
really?
sort of
I didn't think they
like
died.
"Ah," and
I
then
didn't
they
think
went
I
down.
didn't I didn't think they
I
died
may
at
be
all.
wrong. I may be wrong,
I thought
but
that was more just like a psychic shock kind of thing.
oh,
And then
maybe.
because I
You know
think
what? That could be right.
I think Mel will come back and like she's gonna be the lead because remember when she kills Ambassa or no she doesn't kill her but she
She
dies.
kills the Black Rose
Yes, and then she
Bessa.
dies,
Yeah.
and then they all kind of stamp their spears, and then that's kind of like they're recognizing that now she is like their matriarch
The ruler.
essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you keep what you kill.
yeah, exactly. That's what that again. A lot of interpretation. We're reading between the lines very heavily here, but that's kind of what the vibe I got from it. So,
I agree.
one scene I just want to bring while we're talking about one scene I loved. I was so happy, and could I have wanted more of this throughout the season? Yes. I loved when Echo shows up at the end and
Yeah, super love that.
he has full control over his time warping abilities
Yes.
because I was like I knew they were like you could tell they were leading up to that especially when it was like I think it was episode 6 or 7 or whatever when it's showing him like
Reestablishing.
yeah
Yeah.
when they figure out how to make the like the time loop or whatever and I was like,
Yes.
I was like, okay, they're explaining how Echo got his time warping powers, and I was like, this is going to become like some big important plot point, and then he shows up at the end and like he's pulling the ripcord on the thing and zooming back. I was like, this is awesome. I love that part, and then of course he hits Victor, and that helps Jace to or he distracts him and then helps Jace kind of defeat him or whatever, or overcome him in the celestial world.
Yep. I
I love that part.
I was a massive fan of how they treated Echo the whole way through.
Yeah.
He's still a kid from the slums, but he's clearly very brilliant.
Yeah.
Heimerdinger recognizes that he has a
Loved
chance
Echo.
to sort of show it off. And then him in the other world, he just keeps getting these visions of this thing, and I loved that whole episode of like the other world episode, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
I
what
enjoyed that.
what could be, and then
So,
that
so one complaint I have, not enough Echo. That's one complaint I
yeah,
have about. I was like,
that's fair.
because we had him a little bit in the beginning, and then they got sucked into the time warp or whatever, and then
Yeah,
we didn't see him for several episodes. I'm like, where the hell is Echo? Like, when is he showing up here? And then finally we did get quite a bit of him at the end. But yeah, I agree. He's one of my favorite characters for sure, and it was just like it felt like a huge payoff at the end there when he came back and he was went full Super Saiyan.
yeah. I would. So I classify the three like release dates of the three, different episode drops
Yeah.
as like 3 different arcs.
Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, we got Echo in arc 1, and arc 1 seemed to be connecting season 1 to season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of this is what's happened, this is what's happening now. And then arc 2, was sort of like, now that we lost all of our geniuses and all this is what's happening politically. And it was sort of Vi's arc. I mean, Vi and Jinx, but
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it sort of explained between the sisters what's going on. And then the third act was, okay, now everybody that left, this is what happened, this is what's coming back, this is the actual like story that we're trying to tell here, which I don't hate, but I don't like that I have to figure out what the overarching story is
Yep.
in 3 episodes.
Yep.
For a 9 episode
So
show.
they actually, in my opinion, they messed it up a little bit because they had that time loop episode or whatever when they're in the multiverse. I actually think that one should have came before, like the episode before it, because they showed a lot of stuff that didn't make any sense. And I know because I was watching it with Autumn through the whole way through.
Yep.
So I'll bring this up now because I said she had a really hard time with this show or this season. We watched season 1 together. She really liked season 1 a lot, and season 1 was like, yeah, there was a few plot twists and turns and stuff, but it was pretty straightforward and easy to follow. And like Autumn's not a big fantasy person in general. She doesn't really get like, like she also doesn't know anything. Like at least we have some base knowledge of these characters and like there's some expectations there and stuff. She doesn't know anything about this stuff. She's not used to watching stories and like not into fantasy stuff at all. And she by I think about the 4th episode, she was lost and completely lost interest in the show altogether.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I could see it happening. I could totally see it happening because I was like I'm not sure what's going on, and I have a much better understanding of what's happening in this world and stuff. And I also, I love fantasy stories, so I'm usually good at like predicting these things or like being able to, just like even something as simple as like the mad or the arcane power. I was like trying to explain to her like, probably what's going on with Victor and the arcane power, and like it just didn't make any sense. She's like, okay, I don't get it. Like, so for I think for your average normie, the show might not hit as hard or the season might not hit as hard because it does get a bit too ambitious at moments and a bit lost in its own like over design of the plot. And I do wonder if it would like just, if you're just somebody who casually watches something like this, because that's a huge compliment I had about season 1 was I was like, anybody could dive into this and enjoy it.
Yeah, you didn't have to know anything.
Yeah, I was a huge promoter of it for that exact reason. It was like I really feel like anybody could enjoy this show. And season 2, I felt like it got way deeper into like the fantasy, sci-fi kind of narrative.
For sure, they touched on a lot more spots of like fan service, like those who know will know, kind of a thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's, I don't know. I still think they did a lot of good stuff. I really like the Jinx and the I don't know her name, but the Mute Girl.
I want to talk about Jinx because Jinx is my favorite character in the show by a mile, by 10 million miles, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I'll say a lot of good things about Jinx. I mean, number one, I would say Jinx for me was the most consistent character arc between season 1 and season 2. Where it was like I could clearly delineate her entire journey as a character throughout both seasons, and it was like you could just so like clearly see her evolution, like from being like the little girl to being traumatized to and a little bit surprising. And I think you could this could go either way. I liked what they did with this season. I could also see people going like, well, season 1 ended off with her basically as the villain, and like I definitely started season 2 expecting her to kind of be like the main antagonist, and like
she was immediately the hero.
Immediately completely destroyed any kind of hope for that. Not that I was really hoping for that anyways, but because I like Jinx as the character, so I it's easier to celebrate a hero than a villain usually. So personally, I was fine with it, and she just was the coolest fucking character in the whole show. Like she had so
It
many
was very
moments where
good.
she just like shows up and she's just badass and like she's becomes the hero of Zon, and just like her whole vibe and everything was just awesome. And then they do the redemption arc thing, right? She kind of
Yep.
redeems herself. She decides like she definitely seems at the end like to have like almost like to be like have suicidal ideations almost, where she's
Yep.
like thinking about ending it, and then she kind of does at the end. um
I love
unclear
that scene, by the way.
unclear. Well, so this is where I'm really torn, because I'm always torn when my favorite character in the show dies, so it's like,
Sure.
so she, they get into this fight with Warwick. She knocks him off the with she almost kills Vi, or Warwick almost kills Vi. Jinx sacrifices herself to knock Warwick off the bridge, and then she pulls out the grenade, and then they both explode. But it's unclear if she's actually dead or not. Like, you could probably
Yeah, we
theorize
don't
that
see
she
a
might not
body.
be. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't know that she's dead. But, it did. Yeah, I'm always torn on that kind of stuff, because it's like, on one hand, I always love when a show makes the stakes really high and like somebody important dies. But I don't usually want it to be my favorite character. I'm like, I'm like, I wish it was Vi. I wish Vi died, or I wish Caitlin Kiriman died. Or something. I wish one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
I would. I think I think I
want
would have
that, like,
digested that easier. But
I want that stake in the ground of like, this is real, and things will never be the same again.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I put all of my coins on this guy.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
Game of Thrones reminds me of that. Like when
Yes,
Jon Snow
totally,
died at the end of season
100%.
5 or whatever. I was like,
Hmm.
fuck you.
Yep.
No.
I actually thought of Game of Thrones too when that happened, because I was like, man, I'm like, there's not too many shows that like do have the balls to like kill off like main characters, right? And they didn't really
Yeah.
kill. There was really no other main characters. I guess Victor died. I guess, right? He's technically dead.
Victor and Jace are
Yeah.
theoretically dead.
Right. Okay.
Warwick, which was Vander, and we all sort
Right.
of accepted
Vander
that in
and
the
Jinx.
first act of for season 1.
Yep.
Jinx was a tough one. But yeah, it's
Yeah. So those are big choices to make, right? And
yeah.
you're always going to have different like reactions, I think, from the fan base. So I don't know how to feel about it. I appreciate it on one hand, but on another hand, I'm like, my favorite character in the show just like blew up in like a fairly like uncelebratory fashion. So it was like,
Yes.
damn,
Yeah.
that sucks.
It's tough.
Yeah, it was. So, but yeah, she was my favorite character in the show by far. I think she's cool as hell. And a few
She
things
had
I
the
want.
best story arc, I would say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But her and V's like whole thing, like as sisters, and all the drama between them and everything. I think that was really well done. A couple things though I do want to bring up about her. Like I will say, like just outside of the show, like I do think Jinx now. I think this show will push her to be like a household video game character. That's one thing that I really like about this is, and I don't want to compare her to something like Sonic or Mario or something. It's not on that level, but I do think now we have a character that has, what's the term for it? Ascended beyond just like the gaming media space,
That's fair.
and
They're looking for like a Harley Quinn.
And she is Harley Quinn, and that was the other point I was going to say. She's literally the Harley Quinn archetype, but done just in a million times better. She's like, she actually
much more reasonable.
Well, and the biggest problem that
Like
they've
real.
I mean, better than I do that like one of the biggest mistakes they've made with Harley Quinn over the years is that like she eventually became like the original archetype of Harley Quinn is that she was like traumatized, and that she carries that trauma with her, and like that's always like a part of her, and that always shows up in like some form or another. So she's like never completely right in the head. That's like the OG Harley Quinn. But as she's evolved over time, it feels like they've gone much more like not even anti-hero, but just like straight up hero with it, where it's like her trauma doesn't even exist, or it doesn't even matter, or it's completely ignored, and she's not like this damaged character, even though that's like totally what she's portrayed as, like physically.
Yes.
And
they tried to take away all of her flaws, which made her great.
Exactly.
To try to just be like this character that young women can like look up to, and I'm like, you should not look up to this.
Well, and it's just not realistic again, right? Like it doesn't fit the character archetype. It doesn't fit like just the general, like, everybody has challenges and things that they overcome. And then obviously Jinx is like got some massive trauma and PTSD, and like that is made very prevalent, but she still overcomes it to a degree, right? Not entirely. In fact, it ends up undoing her really in the end. But like it plays an integral role in like her decision making throughout the entire show.
Yep, 100% agree. The development of Jinx was, I think, by far the best. They got the most like focus from what I can tell. Jinx and Vi.
Yeah,
They had great
for
arcs
sure.
as far as like one thing I look for in a character is somebody who continuously evolves. Like it's not
Yes,
just like this is where I
100%.
came from and this is why I'm here.
Yep.
And then now
And then
I
they're
am
just
this
static
person
after
and
that.
forever. Yeah, which I fucking
Yep.
hate so much. But
100% agree
yeah,
with
they
that.
sort of showed how these events were changing them and the reactions to that and how they overcame them, and that is good storytelling to me. I think they did that the best with them. Jace, I would say they did a pretty good job with. Like I don't have many complaints. Like the way
Sure.
he's very reactive. Like he always wants to push forward and do the best.
Yep.
Something happens and then he reacts to it. And
I
whether
didn't.
that's good or bad.
He's a weird character for me because I didn't love him in season 1. Like he was not my favorite character. He seemed a bit cocky, overconfident.
Yeah.
He had big aspirations, and then as soon as he got sucked into the time void or whatever you want to call it, he that completely like changed his perspective on everything. So which I guess I kind of like that version of him better because he's more badass and he just kind of comes back and does what he needs to do.
Yes.
I don't think I wasn't in love with him as a character or anything. He was just kind of there as like a plot device to move things forward in my mind.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that's super fair, especially in season 2. Like season 1, they tried to develop him. Like
Definitely.
This is where he came from. This is what I'm doing. He always had a chip on his shoulder, so he's always going to push.
Yeah. One of the best episodes in season 1 is when Tim and Vi go to the Shimmer factory, right? And they go and like take down all of
and he kills a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And that's right. Yeah, forgot about that. That's right. He kills whatever that chick's son or whatever, and then she wants revenge, and that's what starts off on episode 1, season 2. So that's good. So I that one stands out in my mind. So he had his moments for sure, but did he have any amazing moments in season 2? Like nothing really stands out in my mind, to be completely honest with you.
No, that's super fair. Like the big character moments was his sacrifice to end it with Victor or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved his arc in the establishing episode where it was, Echo and Jace. Jace is in this weird survival sort of like, especially because for the character, that's a big development moment. In season 1, he was almost suicidal, right? Like everything's falling apart and, maybe it's not worth it. He meets Victor as he's about to jump out his window.
Yep.
And then in season 2, now, everything is as shithead as it could be, and he's struggling to survive, and he'll do whatever it takes to survive. So you see a good, character progression through it, and then he comes back, and he's like, I will not fail. And I like that sort of like that turn in that character, and you could see it, like they change him physically, they give him a beard, and he's just, you could see it in his eyes.
Yeah,
like
he's a different guy.
All right, I'm committed. Yeah.
And I like that version of better of him, but I would say it was a more one-dimensional version of him. He wasn't as nuanced, but he was more badass and looked cooler. So that's a plus in my book. Sometimes that's all I need. Sometimes
there is something I would love to ask your opinion on. What about the scene that went way too fucking long, which was Vi and Caitlyn?
Okay, so
when they like hooked up.
The lesbian in the jail?
Yeah.
Well, which one? Because there were several where they hook up.
Well, like when they hooked up in the jail, like
in the jail cell.
Yeah.
So
and
here's
went like way too fucking long on that scene.
So here's a problem that I have. Honestly, I don't care. So actually, here's my biggest complaint about that scene. No tits. I didn't see any tits. Where was the tits? Like they didn't even I was watching with Autumn. She's like, are we going to see some tits? They didn't show us any tits. So, kind of a bummer. So they didn't deliver on the scene, number one. But number two, actually, this is a big complaint that I have about not just season 2, but season 1 as well. I do not like the music for the most part in this show,
Oh,
and
interesting.
they often, for me, get the tone wrong. There's moments where it's good and I like it and it works, but there's a lot of moments where it's like too much, and it's like it blows my mind. I'm like, how did you get the most like grating and like emotionally like distracting music possible for me in so many of these scenes? And that's a great example of that, where I couldn't tell you what the what the song is or anything, but the music in that moment just totally took me out of it. And I was just like, this is really like,
Oh.
it just again was just really grating for me. It was really cheesy. And then, like you said, it went on too long. Could it have been like an emotionally impactful moment between like two people who love each other? Like, I think it could have been, but they didn't set it up appropriately. It was too focused on like just they just wanted to like basically like sexually relieve themselves. Like,
Fan service.
do we really need that? Like, I mean, couldn't they just like had like a touching like romantic moment? Like, they're like the city's literally like under immediate threat of being destroyed. They seem to both be
Yes.
aware that they need to get out there and get shit done. And instead they're too horny to like keep their pants on. Like, it just didn't, the vibe of it was just very weird. And then the music totally took me, just escalated that even further. So yeah, I just thought it was, poorly constructed for the most part. It doesn't bother me or anything. Like, I don't care about like, what they're portraying or anything. That doesn't bother me.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't, I think it could have been way better executed. That's it.
I totally agree. It I think you easily could have accomplished that in 1/5 of the time,
Yes.
where like all you need to do is convey to the audience like what is happening and why, and the
Yep.
emotional like impact of it,
Mm-hmm.
which they easily could have done when they passionately kissed and then they started to go for the shirts or whatever. Like you could have
Yep.
had Caitlyn pull the shirt up, it wipes to black, everybody knows what happens, boom, we move on.
Mm-hmm.
It seems weird to me that they spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to animate a lesbian
That's-
sex scene.
I mean, to animate any
Which,
sex scenes really would be, I
right?
just, if for a show like this, I understand they want it to be a bit more mature. They want to broach the topic of adult relationships. Like, that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, like, that's not what we're here for. That's not why we're watching the show,
No.
right? We're here for
Want to see
cool ass
stories and
characters,
characters.
badass battles, like cool magic. That's what we're here for. So it's just
Yeah.
it's a waste of time and money, like you said.
I have a whole other website that I go to watch that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yep.
just it was very odd to me that
100%.
not only did they commit to it, but they
Mm-hmm.
overcommitted to it. And Necrit, who is a YouTuber, who is the guy who does the League of Legends lore,
Yep.
he had an interview with one of the Arcane showrunners, and he explained that that was the dumbed down version. That
Yep.
that whole scene was much longer,
Oh God. Okay.
and I just don't understand what was the
Like I said,
thought
unless they're
process.
gonna give me like a full on like hentai tentacle scene, like
Yeah, screw it, let's go. Right?
yeah, like commit if you're gonna do it, commit to it. But they didn't even commit to it. So it was just like a bunch of like high school teenager like melodrama bullshit.
Right.
Yeah,
It
no,
just yeah, I don't
not
know.
not great. And I felt that way. I'm gonna be honest. I felt that way about their relationship, like in general. To be honest with you, it didn't like strike me as a believable relationship.
I would say in season one it did. In season two, they sort of
That's
like
fair.
at least in Act One, they established that it did
I actually don't
broken
really
pretty
remember
hard.
in season one, and that's probably because it was really subtle. Like
Yeah,
it was much more minimal. I knew there was some vibes there, but it like wasn't. It didn't take precedent over like any of the major scenes in the show or anything. It was just kind of there.
yeah, they just sort of had like the biggest scene for me, and this might be controversial, was just the one scene when Caitlyn takes Vi to the upper city to her room, and they're sort of
Yeah.
laying on the bed and just staring at each other and talking. And that was sort of the most like sensual one where you realize like, oh, these, this could be a thing. And I like that. That was very good, like storytelling, character building, and it gets you
Yeah.
wondering and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it they just made it like in season two. in Act One or whatever, they
Yeah.
work together and great, we're gonna make this, and then they just
Mm-hmm.
totally split as far as like what their
Mm-hmm.
goals are,
Well,
and
and
then
it
their
was
lives
also
went.
let's not forget that then Maddie comes into the whole picture, and then they have the scene with
Yes,
her, and I was like, okay, sorry, is Kierman just like kind of a hussy? Is that is that what I'm getting from her character? She just like, like Vi pissed me off, so I'm just gonna like sleep with you instead. I'm just like, I don't really like this character development. Like it kind of undermines her like integrity as a character. Like she just
I
didn't really.
agree.
She seems like such a disciplined individual, but then in
Yes,
the bedroom, she's just like throwing it out to whoever wants it. It didn't really like jive with her character type for me.
I mean, to be fair, they sort of established she's been with two people.
Right.
So I wouldn't quite call her a hussy. I also think that's like the timeline of this story is years. I don't know this to be sure,
Right.
but
Okay.
I'm
So
going off
yeah,
like
and
Jace's beard.
that is a good point where it is hard to tell how long of a time period was between all of the story points and everything. It could have been a while for sure, definitely.
Yeah, like Vi was able to establish herself as like the
Yeah,
champion of
that's
a
true.
fighting pit, and I mean Jace's beard is sort of what I'm going off of. Maybe it's months that
Yeah.
they've lost them, and Ambessa has to try to work her way into the upper echelons of politics and worm her way through everybody's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I think from Act One to Act Two, there's quite a time jump, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. We got Ronnie in the chat. Welcome, Ronnie. We are talking Arcane. I think we'll be wrapping up the conversation in a few minutes here. What else do you want to talk about? Anything? Any other big points that you
There's
want to bring
probably
up?
a bunch of stuff that we
There
didn't
is.
really
Oh,
touch
there's a
on.
million things. We're at 50 minutes right now.
Yeah,
So I mean, I'm
it's
happy. We
it's
can we
hard.
can we can touch on a few other things. One other thing I was going to bring up was Heimerdinger. What the hell happened to Heimerdinger?
Ooh,
I was confused because he was like, "I'll see
it didn't really.
you in the future,
Yeah,
boy," or so. I forget what he says. Right? Like he
I'll
sends
see you,
Echo into
kid.
the exactly. He sends him into the time loop, and Heimerdinger just decides to stay there. One scene I did like. Again, I don't love the music in the show, but
I loved it.
I thought it was really cute at that one episode where he is singing the song or whatever.
Oh,
I thought that was pretty
actually,
funny.
I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah,
It was
that was
sort of
cute.
odd in the sense of like music choice, but then
It
once you
was.
realize and they set the establishing thing of like this is him, just performing,
Yeah. I
that
he
really
was like,
elevated
"Thank
that
you."
moment.
Yeah, I did like that. I thought that was really cute, and I was like, "That's totally like Heimerdinger like personality." And I didn't. The song was fine, like it was whatever. But yeah, that like surprised me. I enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, especially like it's weird because how do you judge Yordles? They're immortal, and so they
Are
live
they immortal?
forever.
Okay, don't think
They
I knew.
are
I thought they
immortal.
just lived for a long
You can
time.
kill, well, you can kill them, but they'll live forever if you don't. From what I understand, maybe
Okay,
it's thousands of years, but I believe that they are immortal. Like
okay,
unless
I
something
didn't know
kills them,
that.
they will live forever.
Should we consult our chat GPT on this? Let's see. Are Yordles immortal? Let's see what it says. Yordles are not technically immortal, but
Oh, okay.
they live incredibly long lifespans and do not age in a conventional sense. They are
There you go.
spiritual beings tied to the magical essence of Runeterra, allowing them to endure for centuries or even millennia. While they can be harmed or killed, their connection to the spirit realm gives them unique resilience compared to mortal beings.
Okay, there you go. So I was wrong, but
Weird.
yeah,
So
but they live
uh,
for a very, very long time.
and potentially maybe forever based on what this is. A millennia, apparently. Whatever, a millennia is what, a thousand years?
1,000 years, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they could live for thousands of years. Okay. Interesting. I actually didn't realize. I know he was old, like hundreds of years, but I didn't realize like they just like basically never died, at least in human terms, right?
Right. But you're right to bring up like Heimerdinger and his quote unquote end.
Yeah.
Because he just plugged in like a power cord and then seemingly he was evaporated or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that what will happen in future stories is we'll realize that Heimerdinger stayed in that alternate reality
Seems
where
like it.
Hextech never existed.
Yeah. And that's
He
what
was teleported
what
or
he
whatever.
wanted, right?
I
He made it
wholly
very
agree.
clear that his whole intention was to live in a world without magic.
Yeah, yeah, he's fully against it, which is
Yep.
super fair, following
Hmm.
the arc of the story.
Yep.
And yeah, it's very interesting.
Hmm. So
I just
I will see some more of him at some point, but very curious, like where that's all going.
mm, I hope so. I also liked the Singe's daughter did come back. It seems like the body is filled with
Yeah, at
Sky's
the end, right?
soul or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did
So
notice that too.
that is Oriana in League of Legends. That's
Okay.
her backstory.
Okay, didn't know that.
Singed, they had to change his story a little bit to make it all work, but I like the new story.
Okay. So I thought that because yeah, they have that scene. You just see her for a brief second at the end where she's standing in front of the music box or whatever.
Yes. So Singe finally got his dream.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's good. I liked a lot of it. They wrapped up enough stuff and they also gave
Hmm.
everything sort of like a good what could be or
Yeah,
why did this happen? Like sort of they gave you questions on both ends of the storyline,
definitely.
but you also got like a good, in my opinion, satisfying sort of start to finish story between
Hmm.
season 1 and 2.
I would also say they did like maybe not wrap up is quite the right word, but they did address every single major character like storyline that needed to be
Mhm.
addressed, and it did give you some kind of an ending, even if there's still questions.
Yes, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah. So I did appreciate that. I really like when I watch a show and it ends. I hate shows that either don't ever end or they
Yeah, it just
end
never gets
or
renewed.
they just don't like or they end but they don't really like address what needs to be addressed in the storyline.
True. Yeah, that is very tough. That's like why Breaking Bad like holds such a special place in my
Mhm.
heart
Good,
is they
great,
gave
great
us
example.
5 great episodes or
Exactly.
sorry, seasons
Yep.
of just like this is this man's 1 year journey.
Hmm.
And like what happens in that and
Yeah.
everything from there, you see good character progression and then when they're done, they're done. They
Yeah.
could have made millions of dollars if they kept going. You're like,
Exactly.
nope, story's done.
Yeah.
And I
That's a great,
respect the hell
great
out of that.
example where they give you the full story. There's no more questions. You know what happened and it's a great story.
Yes, yeah, and that's it. Like, I think Supernatural could have been a great example of this if they
This
had
is sure.
stopped after 5 seasons.
Okay. I never watched it too much. I mean, Autumn loves it, so I've watched a good amount of it. But she says the same
Sure.
thing where it went off the rails at the end or whatever.
Yeah, the first 5 seasons, amazing, and
Hmm.
they clearly had planned for like a 5 season show,
Yep.
and then they ended up doing 13 seasons or something like that.
Yep.
Like it was insane. So
Exactly.
they found some sort of like story
Hmm.
arc or like a way to repetitively tell the same story.
Yep.
And they just kept doing it. And that
So,
was very frustrating.
last question for you. As we move out of Arcane, we move into
Hmm.
something new.
Hmm.
What do you want to see next?
From television in general, or
No,
just like
no, from
from
the League of
oh,
Legends
ooh,
universe.
great
What
question.
do you want to see
So
next?
there is a series, a slew of great story arcs that they could tell. There's Mount Celestia, which would be super amazing, but I don't think they should tell next. I think that's
I'm
later
not
down.
familiar with that one at all.
That's fine. There is a mountain in Runeterra that is insanely tall. That if you're able to climb it, it's legend that you may be able to access the power of the gods.
Okay, I like that. That's
And,
cool. And who's from that region?
uh,
What are so
specific characters?
that's an adjacent question. Some characters that weren't in Arcane that you'd like to see.
Ooh, okay, yep. So as far as like the regions, like the main one that seems to be most likely, especially with that final scene with a three-eyed raven or six-eyed raven,
Yep.
was it's almost certainly it's going to be Noxus and it's going to be about Swain. That's what
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
alluding to.
Yeah. I know the name from Runeterra or Legends of Runeterra, but I
Sure.
can't
Yep.
think of what the character looks like.
He is one of the leaders of Noxus. I
Let,
believe the main leader.
let me
I mean, I don't know how they divvy out those leaderships.
let me look him up. Oh yes, yes, the Crow do. Yes. Okay. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know who you're talking about.
So there's a Swain arc, which would be great because he is tied to both Ionia, which is an island nation of the half animal humans.
Mm-hmm.
Also where some of the more Japanese, I would say, like the sword fighters come from. And then there
Yep.
is the Freljord would be super interesting because
Yeah.
it ties in with the Void and how there is one of the original Void beings, I guess, gods, whatever you want to call it, sort of frozen under the ice, and how that happened
Yep.
and what it's like up there, and the battle between the Void and the world, and I
Totally.
think that would be super cool.
So
Demacia, I think
I
makes
was gonna say
a lot of
Freljord
sense.
because that was my main, that was my deck,
Ah,
my go-to deck when I was big in Legends of Runeterra, and
yeah,
I love Ash's character design, and I just feel like there's a really cool story that could take place there.
super fair. I also super enjoy just the cold, that whole sort of like side of it. It's very different from what we got before, which I think
Sure.
they should do.
Yep.
Demacia would be good because they're very anti
I feel like that's too close. I
mage.
feel like that's too close to what they just did. I think that's my
I
only thought about that
100%
one.
agree. Yeah, 100% agree. I think it's too similar to go from arcane to anti mage.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fine to go arcane Noxus,
Right. Okay.
war and
Because
warrior and
Demacia
all
is
that
all
sort of
about
stuff.
suppressing magic and whatever.
Yes.
Right.
But I
Okay.
would love, love, love to see the desert people. I can't remember the region. Shamir?
Shurima.
Sharian.
Shurima.
Sharima. That's it.
Shurima.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also would love to Bilgewater, right? What's her name? The pirate chick.
Ooh. Misfortune.
Yeah, Misfortune. I'd love anything from that, or
Misfortune.
that
There's
being
Gangplank.
incorporated somehow. I think would be cool.
Yeah. Or even like if you went way back to the Shadow Isles and how that got established. Like they have a book on it, so I don't think that they'll do that necessarily. But that's much more undead and
But
that sort of like there's
your number one hope though is
the Sharima.
Shurima. That's your number one.
I
Okay.
think Noxus is by far the number one choice. Like that's what they'll do.
Seems like
But
it's
I would
going that way.
like to see Sharima. I think
Sure.
that would be amazing. It's much
Where
more
well,
power of the gods.
the real question is where is Noxus in relation to Shurima and Runeterra?
So Piltover and Zon are the connection point between two continents.
Yeah.
So Zon is in the southern continent, Piltover is in the northern continent, and obviously
Okay.
connected by that bridge.
Because I'm looking at the map. So Noxus and Shurima, they are only divided by a small kind of strait that is between the two
Yes. I
territories.
mean, from what I understand, like to get from Piltover to Freljord takes 3 weeks via boat.
Yeah,
So it is quite a large world.
Freljord is way out there. So if they
Yes.
went the Noxus route, it would actually be more. I would expect that they would go the Shurima lore instead of Freljord.
I think so. Like Noxus makes the most sense because with Ambessa we got a taste of like what that is. It sort of walks us into season 3 or whatever the
Yep.
next series.
Yep.
And then from there they could set another establishing character which could walk us into something else, or they could just jump if they wanted to. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
huge fan of anthology series, so I like stuff that makes no sense. It's not established. They just tell a good story in a short amount of time.
Yep.
But I get that when you're trying to build, some type of I don't want to say cinematic universe, but something that people can grip onto as far as like character development and a world, that's probably not what they're going to want to do.
I doubt it. No, I hope this stays on TV too. To be honest with you, I like it much more as a series. I don't want to see a movie or anything like that. But
Agreed.
who knows? Maybe we'll see that eventually down the road. That's usually the
I
way these
mean,
things go.
if they do an hour and a half to 2 hours of like a good story, like there's definitely stories that they
Yeah.
could tell, and you would get like much more,
Yeah.
like a much higher quality
Mm-hmm.
product.
I mean, if anything,
But
I want. Let's go. If we circle back to some of our original criticisms, if anything, I wanted just more time with these characters in Arcane.
yes,
There wasn't enough
I would like
time
to
to build
see
on it.
12 to 15 episodes per season would
Yeah,
be
I
nice.
would have liked a whole other season to keep telling these stories and keep building these relationships, because there was a lot of things that I think they could have expanded on, and it felt like you said rushed at moments, and really crunched in there because there's a lot of great ideas, but it just didn't really get time to breathe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit too much.
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about who was Warwick again? Vander.
Vander. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Vander being forced into that Warwick role.
Sure. That's fair.
Like I was okay with the arc, and it sort of brought the sisters together again, and I sort of get it as like a storytelling writer's, tool.
Yep.
But I don't know, like we already mourned his death in
we
season one.
we lived that experience.
It, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, do I care anymore?
It could have just been like some wolf that he turned into like a freaking, monster. Like I would have been fine with that, to be honest with you.
Yes. I think I would have more enjoyed that.
And they could have
just a pure weapon.
They could have focused on just, the scientist dude instead, right? And his relationship with his daughter, maybe, right? And he's experimenting on the wolf instead of having to tie it into Jinx and Vi's story.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Singed story is very cool, very interesting, and we didn't get enough of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they could have definitely made some different decisions to, cut down on some of the fat and give us more of the good stuff.
Let me ask you this: if you were to rank Arcane season 2, let's say 1 to 10, where does it land for you?
I hate giving reviews like this, but for me, am I allowed point? Is it a point system, or do I have to give it just a solid number?
Whatever works for you. You could do 8.743 if that works for you.
Okay. I'm sitting at about an 8.2 myself.
Okay. That's very reasonable. Hey, 82%, it's a good solid pass.
Whereas season 1 for me was probably more like a 9.5 or something.
Yeah, I agree for the most part with you. Again, I really loved season 2 because it stepped away from that normal everyday life and more into that like fantasy stuff, which I just very much enjoy.
Yeah. I enjoyed that too. I love that stuff. I love fantasy stories, but I love fantasy stories that are given, like I said, room to breathe and time to spend with the characters. So that when that journey ends, I really feel it. In complete parallel to this, right? I just finished Metaphor ReFantasio. That's a 100+ hour game where I got to spend so much time with those characters, and when that journey finally ended, it was sad and satisfying, and that's how like finishing a really great story should feel, And I don't think this hit on that level for me, But I get it. It's like this show cost $1 million, however millions of dollars, and like
sure,
like I get why they did it. I just think it got over ambitious at times.
That's super fair. I would be very similar to what you said. I would probably give season 1, probably 9.5. Like it's nearly perfect.
It's almost perfect. Yeah.
And then season 2, I'd probably give it like a 9.2.
Sure, that's fair.
I don't know. Even that seems generous to me, but
9 out of 10.
At least a 9, I would say.
That's totally, and it's deserving of a 9. I'm just I think I'm more skeptical, or not skeptical, but it's critical of the compact nature of it than maybe other people.
And that is what holds it back for myself as well.
Yeah, exactly.
A little too rushed.
But I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm very excited to see more from hopefully what will be future endeavors in animated, League of Legends Runeterra content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the studio did an amazing job sort of building this world out and making it feel, important and cool and real. And I would love to see them continue and work with Riot and build more and more stories in this universe.
Yeah, I want more, definitely.
Oh,
all right. Well, great chat. Loved it. I think we got most of it out of our system here.
Yes.
Let us know what you thought of the show and what were your highlights? What were the low points? Did you like it? Did you not like it? We'll be doing this again, hopefully with something. I don't know what the next show will be that we do, but there'll be something video game related coming out in the near future. I'm soon. Actually, you know what it is? There is a new show coming out on Amazon called, I don't know if you've heard about Level Up or something like that. Have you heard about this?
Level Up? I don't think so, no.
So they're releasing, I'll send it to you, but they're releasing like something like 10 or 12 mini shorts of different games.
Oh yes, I remember this. It's an anthology series
Yes.
about gaming.
About
So
gaming.
it's like
Yes.
Love, Death, and Robots, but gaming.
Yes, exactly. And they're doing like Mega Man and Pac-Man and Armored Core, and like they're doing some really crazy franchises.
Halo,
Maybe,
I think.
I don't
Or
remember.
Warhammer,
probably. Yes, that sounds right. Yeah. They're doing a bunch of Concord, I think, is the first one.
Fantastic.
So if you're interested,
very ambitious.
if you want to do a discussion piece on that, I would be very into that because that's coming out
Definitely.
That's coming out in like a week or two.
Well, I'm always happy to chat with Athea about cinema, gaming, whatever you want.
Okay.
Love this. Love this format.
Appreciate the conversation, and yeah, we will. We're going to see you on the next one.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Peace.
Bye.